welcome back to Rebel with a Cause. I am your host, Eric, and joining me today, the great and wonderful Monica Perez.
Hello.
Hey, there she is. Can you hear me
Oh,
fine?
hey. Yay. Okay, great.
All right, so we got the Dark Tom Woods aspect out of the way. That's always good.
Oh, what is that? I know who Dark Tom Woods is, but I missed the reference.
Okay, so regular Tom Woods tries to help out his fellow libertarians in any way
Yes.
possible. Dark Tom
Yes.
Woods is the exact opposite. So he'll mess with your internet connection. He'll make sure that you don't hit record when you're supposed to. Yeah,
That's really funny.
It's kind of a fun thing that the Friends Against Government podcast and Mark Claire came up with. So.
Oh, I heard them talk about it on their Halloween special, but
yeah,
they halfway into it they were so high that I couldn't even listen anymore. I guess it takes an hour for edibles to kick in, and I think it just kind of spun off to where, unless I was eating edibles, I couldn't deal with it. So speaking of mind-altering substances, I loved your podcast with Joel, the vaping guy.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, that was his first podcast? That's impossible to believe. He's so articulate and clear thinking and knowledgeable. I mean, that guy has a future in vape advocacy.
Yeah. He was nervous the entire time, and slightly before, he's like, "Is there any podcast faux pas?" I was like, "Yeah, don't chew on bananas or potato chips. I guess we'll be okay."
Yeah, exactly.
But he's since been on another podcast, the Morning Drive with David.
I wondered how you found him.
The Empress of Meme on Instagram. She does a lot of meme templates that you can take and create your own memes with.
Yes.
She lives in Indianapolis, and so she's also kind of big with the We Are Libertarians podcast with Chris Bengal.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's on her own podcast called the E-Militia, and they talk about various stuff. But she gave me his stuff, and I was like, all right, I need guests. So
yeah.
But he was so nervous the whole time. I was like, dude, don't worry about it, man. You did great.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I loved it. It was fun to listen to.
Yeah. And then the Morning Drive with David, that guy, he actually bought a whole bunch of his e-liquids. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then he was talking about it on his podcast. It was pretty good.
Yeah, he validated what a vaping person I know at the radio station where my show is, that he knew right from the start that this was about big tobacco monopolizing. Yeah. Keeping, the regulatory barriers to entry. I mean, it could not be more obvious.
Yeah, it was it was so obvious. In fact, we're like, big tobacco's doing this again,
Yeah, exactly. Pretty clear.
Because I even remember back in the 90s, they were trying to talk bad about the cigarette filters, the little pieces of plastic and filter cartridge. Yeah, there was don't do this because you'll have burning plastic in your mouth.
That could not be worse than what you're actually doing. Although I smoked for 25 years, so
yeah, I think it's
glad I stopped.
Yeah, same here. I started when I was 12, and
you did?
Yeah, did it
I was
all the
15, but I wasn't 12.
Well, I had a rough upbringing.
No.
Yeah, so it was smoked all the way up until my late 20s, and then it was you know what, I can't run anymore. Walking up the steps is kind of hard.
I was just sick of being addicted to matches. I would go crazy because I would have matches. I had kids. I couldn't just run out to the store. I had a delivery liquor store. I would have the liquor store deliver me liquor so that they could just bring me smokes.
Oh, man.
I used to do that with pizzas, too. And even when I was in college and absolutely broke, I would order the smallest pizza they would deliver and pay the guy to stop and get me cigarettes on the way.
Nice.
Yeah. This is why I'm glad I quit. It had nothing to do with health. It had 100% to do with just I couldn't stand being a slave.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things because when the cigarette prices went up because of all the taxes that they put on it, and and you're still paying it anyways, and now you're getting a half a carton instead of a full, or you're trying to chip in with your buddies.
Yeah, and no price is too high. Forget it. And as my husband said, this was the real convincer. He just said, I just don't understand why you smoke. It doesn't even get you high. Good point.
That's the pragmatic approach to it. I guess if you smoke a lot, you get a little lightheaded, but that's
Well,
about it.
what it does is, what people don't realize is it fosters later drinking.
Yeah.
It's just a stimulant. It's like a teeny, teeny, teeny grain of Coke or whatever, but it just like therefore makes you drink more, stay up later, get sicker. It's just not better.
No. And now people who want that nicotine fix, they can get it through a vape and nothing else. And
Yes.
we talked about it on my podcast.
Or the THC thing, although that shit will send you. I mean, if you don't understand how to dose those things, they will send you to the hospital. But anyway, whatever.
I got a funny story. So the last Libertarian National Convention, the one that was in New Orleans in 2018, we had wrapped up all the business and everything. So it was the end of convention gala.
Yep.
And I'm standing down there and begrudgingly went up to Nick Sarwark to congratulate him on his third win. I didn't vote for him. I voted for Josh Smith. But some guy from South Carolina comes up with a vape, and he was like, "Hey, do you guys want to try a vape?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I never tried a vape before. I guess it can't be too bad. So Nick Sarwark takes a hit, and he kind of coughs. He's like, "Oh, yeah, that's pretty good." And then I take a really huge one because I figured, I smoke cigars every now and then. I can handle this.
Yeah.
And before the South Carolina guy could warn me, he's like, "No, it's pot."
Oh my gosh.
I had taken such a huge one. I was already drunk off of a couple of scotches and sodas at that
Oh,
point.
no. Were you rocking back and forth in the corner?
Oh, man. I at some point had found myself in a deep conversation with Drew Leda from Oregon. And we were just talking about offshore drilling for some reason. When I kind of realized what was going on, I was like, wait, where am I? What are we doing?
Dude, I'm surprised that you were standing up or conversing in any way. I mean, that shit should really have like a gauge thing that you cannot take that big a hit. Like, do not take the biggest hit you can take.
Yeah, then the South Carolina guy came up to me afterwards. He was like, "I'm surprised you are still standing."
Yeah, totally. I actually try to tell my kids, I have 3 teenagers, one of whom has Down syndrome. So hopefully this isn't going to apply to him. Like food, drugs, anything that you're doing, if you can't look at it and figure out how God gave it to us, then you probably need to take it back one step of processing.
Yeah.
Like if you can't see like, oh, that grew out of the ground or that was walking around, whatever. If you can't envision what you're putting into your face looked like when it was given to us, then you probably want to take that slow.
Yeah, I've tried that with my kids, with trying not to eat the gross processed food and everything.
Yes, yeah, it's all that.
And I was like, all right, so try to imagine yourself as a caveman, 20 to 50,000 years ago.
Yes.
You wouldn't have had access to this at all.
Right.
And
right,
so
and you have to totally trust whoever it is doing it.
Right.
So,
long story short, if you can't pull it out of the ground yourself or
Yes.
put an arrow through it, probably
Yes.
don't put it in your mouth.
and for me, I know my kids aren't listening in real time, but I still, all these years later, my dad is long dead, hear the stuff he told me, and I'm using it. I'm using it to teach my kids. So I feel like that little voice of mom I'm just putting a little packet of mom voice in their heads so that they can use it later when they need it, access it when things get hairy.
Yeah, last weekend I took my son to a little VR game at the 13th Gate in Baton Rouge. It was like a really big haunted house, but they decided that they can't make money from a haunted house all year long, so they have like escape rooms and
Oh, good. Yeah,
and the
fun.
VR games.
I love those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's him and his friends, and they're all screeching and hollering and everything the whole time. And I'm like, guys, you guys got to listen to learn how to play the game before we go in there.
Right.
And then it was at that moment I was like, oh, I just became my dad.
Totally. And you probably looked like it and sounded like it. And in their like Charlie Brown world, it was just like, wah, 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 wah.
Oh, and it was self-evident too, because in the game you have to like pull levers, but you can't use the guns to do that. There's like another button you got to push. And none of the kids would go up and they would like shoot the lever. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Just pull the lever like this. It was like, oh, how'd you do that? I was like, it was talked about in the orientation meeting.
Gotten to the point where if you have to read the instructions or listen to the instructions, it's just not a viable product.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like kids aren't even learning that, like, you just can't, if you can't intuit it by looking at it, it's not, that's, so like apply that level of laziness to like the food you eat. It's like, yeah, if you can't figure it out, don't go near it.
Yeah, I think the average for a human being to figure out something is like 11 seconds. And
Really?
yeah, I think there was like some kind of study on something like that.
Right, right.
So just watching them like sit there, shoot that lever, I would just let it go for about 10 seconds. I was like,
Yeah.
at some point they're going to figure out there's another button on that gun that they can push.
Wow,
And
that's
they just never got it.
fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to start observing that, or trying to observe that.
Yeah, so just like hand a new piece of technology to somebody and just give them a few minutes and just let them just kind of work around with it. But
interesting. I'm going to do that to my mom. She's 91. I'm going
oh,
to give her something. She listens to my show on the internet.
well, you know, hey, she's
There
participating,
you go.
I guess. That's also a lot of things that I have problems with the older folks is they don't really want to learn anything new. They're just kind of set in their ways. And you're just like, come on, you got to keep the grooves going in your brain, you know.
I feel like
Pick up
that's
something
what
new.
our generation needs to do, because we're the generation that saw the internet raw,
Yeah.
like the limited hangout, and the
Yeah.
ones, our kids just think that we're crazy because they didn't see it. And we need to, I don't know how we're going to penetrate their generation, but they think we're crazy with like whatever.
Yeah, I get, and I'm assuming you're Gen X is along with me, right?
I'm older than you are, but I am definitely Gen X.
Okay, yeah. So like
post baby boom.
Yeah, I'm on like the tail end. I was born in '79, so yeah, we saw the internet in its infancy. You know, my dad had a drafting job for electronics and instrumentation. So he would get to bring home computers, and every now and then he would have to upload stuff through the phone line, and that was back when you had to put the phone receiver
into a
the
thing.
Modem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we didn't have that, but I know it was there.
Yeah, at breakneck 5,600 baud rate. So
you come up the next day. Like, that's what happened.
I was like, yeah, we're just gonna let that sit overnight, and they'll get it maybe tomorrow morning.
Right.
If nobody picks up the phone before then.
Right.
Yeah, so when the Edward Snowden thing happened, and all of us have been paying attention to this crap since the early 90s, and we're just like, he didn't tell us anything new. We all kind of knew about all this stuff. Right. You know, Google is basically just Echelon with prettier packaging on it, you know.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there blowing people's minds. I was like, when Wi-Fi came out, we knew that we could map a room with Wi-Fi signal because it bounces off all the walls and everything.
Yeah, like a bat.
Yeah, and so we, so I would show like a map of somebody's house because we wrote a program to do that, and I was
no
like,
way, really?
Yeah, I was like, look, and if I can do this, and I'm a
that's
stupid
amazing.
Teenager, yeah, if I can do this, and I'm a stupid teenager.
Yeah. Well, the Edward Snowden stuff, if he's not telling us things that are 10 years in the future, he's not telling us anything, because that's what's in there. It's at least 10 years in the future.
Yeah.
That they know what's coming. So he's just makes me sick. I hate that guy. I shouldn't say I hate that guy, because hate is an emotion that it's very difficult for me to conjure up.
Strongly
thank God.
Dislike.
He's not a person. I don't know what his name is. I really don't know, but he's that, whatever that icon is, it's evil.
Yeah, to me, he's the living embodiment of the guy who just started paying attention. You've ever seen that meme where he's like,
oh, funny.
Yeah.
Like a recently converted normie or something.
Right. So he's like, hey, did you guys know that they were tapping all your phone? It's like, yes, we've been knowing this for so long.
That's who he is. He's a gap bridger. That's why he's there.
But did you watch that Joe Rogan interview that he did?
Yes, and I did hours of analysis of it, because Pete Quinona has asked me to do it, and I wasn't going to watch it, because I've already made my judgment on that guy, and I don't like to cause myself pain. I can't watch politicians giving speeches. I can't watch the State of the Union address. I have to do it sometimes. But he asked me to do it, and I did it, even though it was a grueling 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then I was not. I actually, just by playing a few clips of it, I got many on my WSB show. I got many responses that said, boy, I didn't know about that guy, but now, it's so obvious. Didn't you agree? And then it kind of outed Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Joe, he will cause me severe brain headaches because he'll have Larry Sharp on, and Larry's a great guy, and he'll push back against everything Larry was saying. And then the moment, like a government stooge, because he also has that other ex-CIA guy on the show, can't think of his name, but he lives in Idaho now. And Joe will just go, and just kind of shake his head and not really challenge him too much on anything. And then it's just kind of just let him go. And then with the Edward Snowden interview, all right, I can kind of get that you're, having to do it remote and he's not there in the studio with you. And so there might be a little bit of a communication lag or whatever, but you just don't let the guy just talk.
And Snowden was the one recording it, first of all, which was very weird.
Yeah.
He said that from the beginning. And that he didn't call him out on breaking both legs and having to carry. He said he was 120 pounds carrying around a guy who was 260 pounds. That is what Snowden said to Joe Rogan. Yeah. And Rogan did not challenge it.
Yeah, no.
I mean, come on.
You could probably get a 260-pound guy up for a minute.
But 120-pound person?
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to pick him up.
120 pounds? How much does your son weigh? 60? I'm just saying, like, it's okay. Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't know. But I couldn't get a 260-pound person, and I'm more than 120 pounds.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Sorry. That thing just made... You're triggering me. Are you doing that on purpose?
No, I'm not doing it on purpose. Dark Tom Woods is. No.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I was in the military in 1998. So we kind of did some of the same training and everything, and I saw 160-pound guys carrying 240-pound guys because they had to. They couldn't keep it up for very long, but I was like, all right, maybe you could probably get them up and then decide I can't do this, and then but you're saying that you carried him for a while. It's like I don't believe that at all, unless you've got monkey upper body strength that I'm not aware of, but don't look like it.
It's hard for me to actually envision what a 120-pound person with a 24-inch waist, full-grown man looks like. But in my mind, it's a skeleton.
Yeah.
So I can't. Which apparently his skeleton dissolved because he had broken both of his legs jumping out of his bunk. I mean, his story is stupid.
Yeah. It's all kind of plot holes the size that you can drive a Mack truck through.
And it changes. So when I used to have a lot of material on him, I did a lot of shows on him when he first came out because I completely didn't believe it. And then I got taken down from WordPress like a year ago, and my text was saved, but all my media was lost. So my pictures, my videos, my audio, and so I don't have all the things where I had played clips of his first Brian Williams interview, which it disappeared off the internet within days. That completely contradicted the story that had already been out there. Like, he started to morph to phase 2 of the PSYOP, which is how PSYOPs work. Like, if it really, really works well, they give it a new assignment.
Yeah.
I read that in the Joint Chiefs Information Operations Handbook or something. They'll test it in advance, and then they'll roll out future phases, and I could just see the thing changing over time. And now he's this cartoon, basically.
Yeah. And to kind of add to that, Mockingbird, Project Mockingbird, where they had the CIA and the news media and stuff, there's still CIA officers there. It's not called Project Mockingbird anymore. So
that's what people don't understand. They get outed and they just go underground. They're not disappeared.
Yeah.
You know who ran that? Operation Mockingbird?
Oh man, now you're going to test my memory on this one.
I don't know if you're going to know. I think this is an obscure fact.
Yeah.
A little known fact.
Yeah, go ahead and give it to me.
Cord Myers. Who he was a CIA guy who was married to JFK's last mistress, Mary Pynchon Myers, and she was killed the day the Warren Commission report came out, very mysteriously.
Oh, coincidence.
Anyway, it all came together. And I think Cord Myers, his original goal literally was to be president of the world. Like, he was trying to establish a world government that he could be president of. And he ended up running Operation Mockingbird instead. It's just funny. I just think it's weird that there's so many connections you can pull on threads and other things unravel.
Yeah. And with conspiracy theories and stuff like this, you can connect dots that probably aren't meant to be connected, but you get enough of those and you're like, okay, well, this actually meets the criteria for circumstantial evidence. You know.
Yeah, you can definitely look at things and put, it's like the constellations in the sky. I can look at anything and say like that doesn't look like a bull to me, and I could make anything fit on those dots as well as a bull fits on those dots. So I can see how you can create conspiracy theories that really aren't there, and I work hard on making sure that what's really going on behind the scenes, that if I really have an opinion about it, it's like overwhelming. And a lot of times I don't want to believe it. Like I want to not think it's true. And a lot of times I just can't. Like once the scales are gone, you can't see it any other way because no other image fits over those dots.
Right. Yeah, matrixing is a verified phenomenon that happens with human beings. I mean, we try
What?
looking for faces and shadows, and seeing
Yes, that's
animals and
called
stuff.
matrixing.
Yeah,
Some.
and you can do it with audio as well. So people who do the whole ghost hunting thing, and they're hearing static, and then they think they hear some kind of voice coming from it. You're like,
Yes.
it's like, no, your brain is putting that together.
There's a show that I think it's called Ghost Hunters that my son who has Down syndrome just loves.
Yeah.
And he's like 17, so he's not like a baby, but he's got some sophistication. He can watch like a show that has a plot.
Yeah.
And you just walk past it and you're like, he's like, no, Mom, look, it's a ghost. I'm like, it's definitely not. Like, what are you? And my other kids just like, you can't let him watch that. But I get exposed to it a lot. And I'm like, that's just not true.
Yeah, it's a fun show for me and my wife to watch because I like just kind of sitting there, just kind of poking holes in my mind. I'm not going to say it out loud, but I was like, no. And you notice how everyone on the table heard something different.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Then the whole video aspect of it, you're like, okay, do we know if there was a crew behind where that camera was at? No.
Yeah. Oh, yes. You can totally use like assumption, poking assumptions. I mean, that's really where most of the conspiracy speculation theorizing comes from, I think, is you when you're good at it, or when you get used to doing it, what you're doing is identifying the assumptions.
Right.
The stuff that's not in evidence. You're identifying the assumptions and you're questioning the assumptions. And then when you look at like, we're making this assumption, can you debunk that assumption? And then what does the whole official narrative fall apart then?
Yeah.
So, and then I get sick of that because you can question every damn last assumption. And to the point where, is this even reality? Yeah, probably not. Like probably like me knocking on this table is like by some definition, not material, then it becomes like definitional. But I just feel like at a certain point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
At a certain point, it doesn't matter. If this is just a dream, it still has order, and it's here for me to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. It's like, all right, if it's a simulation, this doesn't change what's actually happening to me right now.
Yes,
exactly. I could live as though
Doesn't
this
matter.
is a simulation and nothing matters. I could totally do that, but it was like, no, I'm just gonna carry on.
Yeah, but what's the point of that? Because I mean, you perceive pain, right? It's all about avoiding pain, is it not?
Right. Yeah. We even seen this with 9/11 trutherism, because I was one of those guys, and I would easily dispel whatever government conspiracy theory was out there with the sentence. And if I can just throw a couple of words together that just automatically discounts what you have, then maybe you should do a little more looking into it. Like, cell phones don't work above 6,000 feet.
Yes, right.
Like,
that if a building gets scooped out on one side, it doesn't fall into its own footprint, like Building 7.
Yeah, and there's been other, big major skyscraper buildings that have caught completely on fire and didn't collapse.
And burned for weeks.
Yeah.
But they like Tucker Carlson said, if I recall this correctly, well, we know it can happen because it did happen. You know what I mean? So that's not a guy who's questioning assumptions.
Yeah, no, that's...
And his father was the head of Radio Free America or something. His father was like a really prominent propagandist.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's there for that reason.
Yeah, some more connections there. It's anytime I see the oh, now I'm blanking on his name. The guy from CNN, Anderson Cooper. There we go.
Ah, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
The heir to the Astor fortune who was in the CIA during college. Yeah, okay.
His only job outside of the media was in the CIA.
Yeah.
Which I believe he worked both summers in college, or the two second summers, and his origin story is preposterous.
Yeah.
He went out with, made his own money and didn't want to take his family money and didn't work for anybody and was just on the scene in some like really obscure places getting these scoops that put him on the map. It's like, okay.
And standing in a drainage ditch and saying, look at how much global warming is causing this flooding after a hurricane.
Right, right.
Yeah, that was probably some of the best unintentional comedy ever, because he's standing in the middle of that drainage ditch up to his hips. And then there's like kids walking behind him on the street
Yes.
where it's only like a couple of inches.
Well, that you can see a lot of that these days. Like they'll pull back.
Yeah.
They'll pull back on the shot, and you'll see how ridiculous it is. Like they'll show a little crowd, and then they'll show what looks like a huge crowd as far as I can see. They'll pull back, and like there's no one.
Yeah, they've bunched them
anywhere.
all close. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say it was maybe a BBC reporter that was doing something, and they had like a crowd of maybe 20 people, and they were just like standing so close that they could probably tell what size underwear they had. And then when they pull back on the shot, it's like just that group, and there's nobody else on the street.
Yeah, and that's it. And when they start with, you were talking about virtual reality before, the augmented reality, that Pokemon Go, I think they're going to be able to put themselves, I mean, they're definitely going to be able to put themselves in a real situation, but they're not really there.
Right.
And they've been caught so many times showing pictures of something that isn't that thing.
Yeah.
I think that's what Piers Morgan got run out of the UK way back in the day for posting stuff on Iraq atrocities. That just wasn't the picture they said it was.
Yeah, nothing has changed. Even all the way back to Gulf War One, they had the CNN crew like standing in front of a green screen or a blue screen, reporting on stuff as if they were actually there. And then
I saw that, and then I saw a debunking video that showed that hotel like painted blue, something crazy, and I could never find. All right, maybe I need to go back and relook at that, because I remember thinking, oh well, maybe the hotel was just blue. Yeah. So I can't. But that was a long time ago, where I was like, well, obviously the hotel was just blue.
Because that's the color you paint a building, right? That's
yeah,
blue.
Exactly. In the desert.
Yeah, where you would want to kind of keep it a lighter shade to reflect the sun's rays.
But I didn't see that stuff for what it was until I got this radio show where I took calls, like a terrestrial radio show, and I was covering the Boston Marathon bombing had just happened, and I would be hyper vigilant about making sure I understood every detail of a story, because people would call me. Callers would just call and say stuff I didn't know, and I would feel so stupid, and then I'd have like a 4-day anxiety attack.
Oh, no.
So I would just hyper research before a show.
Yeah.
And the Boston Marathon bombing, I was like, but that isn't the truth. This is this, and it's that, and it's this. And I would like go back, and all the reports were different, and it was changing. And I was like, how can this be? I mean, these are facts or they're not facts. What's the truth? And then I started seeing how the Tsarnaev's uncle was the son-in-law of the CIA chief of Afghanistan, and all that stuff like that. And then what was the clincher for me? What was really the eye opener for me was that I was like, okay, so they said they didn't know who those guys were, but they definitely did, because they were connected with the CIA. So like the FBI guy comes out and says, if you know thing 1 and thing 2, like let us know, because we don't know them, but they definitely did. And then that people died, looked like to me. And I thought, wow, like the government is covering up this thing where people really died, or it didn't even occur to me that maybe people didn't die. That did not occur to me, but the Tsarnaevs for sure died. And they say the second one's live, but I don't think so. And then I realized that they would do it. I was like, wow, they did it. They would do it. So now let me revisit all the things that I said before, like, I just don't believe they would do it. And then then it all opened up. It was just the psychological barrier where I just couldn't believe they would do it.
Yeah. And with that Boston Marathon bombing, I mean, there was so much stuff that was happening afterwards that even if you were trying to build a case against these two brothers, an FBI agent goes to talk to one of the roommates and ends up shooting him in the kitchen or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, Ibrahim Todashev. Absolutely. His wife called me. And I did a video, an audio with her, which hopefully I still have it, but it might have gotten lost in the purge.
Yeah.
But it was from Russia for sure, because I couldn't connect on the internal, like she fled to Russia. I couldn't connect on like the internal WSB phone lines. It was messed. It took hours for me to connect with her. But yeah, he was shot like 6 times. Once a kill shot in the crown of the head.
Yeah.
It was terrible, terrible, terrible thing. Terrible.
Yeah, and if you're trying to get a witness, you probably don't shoot them in the kitchen, even if they were trying to attack you.
What do you mean? You wouldn't shoot them in the kitchen?
Well, I mean, even if the guy was trying to attack the FBI agent who's like asking him questions and everything, I probably would try to do everything I could to maybe not kill him because he's a witness.
Yes, yes, of course, right.
Yeah.
And they kept changing like why they had to kill him. Like he had a broom, and then they were just like, oh, he had a bayonet. It's like there were like 4 of you.
Yeah.
And his friend was sitting outside. I think his friend was sitting outside. Yeah, because they interviewed the friend. That's for sure lost. Yeah. They interviewed the friend. They said he sat there on the curb with me, and he said he was scared. And the FBI guys came and they took him inside, and then that was it.
Yeah, yeah.
He wanted to leave. He had a ticket to Russia. They should have just let him go.
Yeah, so even if he did have a broom or a knife and was attacking you, okay, get cut a little bit, get a bruise.
Well, that they'll never do.
Yeah, yeah.
They won't do that.
Yeah,
That's the world we live in. There's zero risk, zero tolerance for risk. For sure.
I was like, no, that dog barked at me. Okay. Yeah.
That dog has teeth. The dog had teeth.
Oh, yes. The dog had teeth. It was a 9-pound Chihuahua. Could have given me a nasty nip. Oh.
It's pretty frustrating. And I hate looking at that stuff because that's, again, like innocent people getting killed. And if it's the government agents who do it, they're above the law. Like they don't have to stand the same scrutiny. And I actually think they should have greater scrutiny.
Yeah,
because they control the situation.
Immunity. Yeah, that's something that will just drive me nuts because the Fox News watchers out there, they will say all day long that they have a tough job, they have a dangerous job. I was like, no, a crab fisherman in the Bering Sea has a dangerous job.
Yes.
A 7-Eleven convenience store worker after midnight has a dangerous job.
Yes, and they actually, like, even when I was a little kid, I remember seeing reports of like an officer's killed, and they say, like, that's a more serious crime. It should have a greater penalty. And I remember as a little kid saying to my father, but isn't that their job? Like, why is it worse?
Yeah.
Aren't they going in? Like, isn't that what they're signing up for? Why is that like the most egregious? And he was like, I don't know. But like years after that, I realized like the point is, this is your thin blue line, and you need to, which by the way, that expression came out of I'm sure it's been around, but there was a documentary that I had reviewed, Thin Blue Line, where the guy was on death row and was totally innocent. And it was a function of prosecutorial misconduct, whatever. But what they said to the jury was, this is the thin blue line. Like, we can't have them killed because then the floodgates open and you get killed. And that's the mentality. But a lot of times they create the danger, no-knock raids and other stuff like that. Yeah. And if you feel like they're not going to get prosecuted, then they're not going to, and they're trained to take no risk, to be very aggressive. It gets ugly. And then what I think is an end goal for some of this stuff is that innocent, law-abiding gun owners defending their homes from these guys sneaking around in the middle of the night, they get killed like all the time, or there are many examples of them getting killed. And really your answer is like, hands up, don't shoot. Like, I'm not going to, you don't want to have your own gun. You don't want to defend yourself. Yeah. So I feel like it's a chilling effect on, I mean, I don't even want my kids calling the cops and stuff. Like I used to
definitely
say, like, call the cops if there's ever a problem. Like, don't call the cops because my son has Down syndrome. Like, he doesn't know how to react to that. And I really worry. A couple of times he's escaped. And I really worry that, like, I remember once he escaped and we called the cops. And the 2 times I called the cops, both times was a mistake. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, they some are helpful and some are not helpful, but I feel like it injects a level of like armed fatal risk.
Yeah.
And so he was like in the woods and he started yelling, "I have a stick. Don't come close to me." And I'm like, "Oh my God.
Oh, don't do that. Yeah.
Don't say stuff like that," you know? And the cops wouldn't tell me where he was. I had to find the scene. They
Mm.
were like, "Oh, we found him." I was like, "Okay, I'm going there." Like, "No, we're not going to tell you where it is. We don't want you to go there." It's like,
I was like,
this is
I'm his mother. He will listen
I
to
know I
me.
had to
Yeah.
go because yeah, he's a big kid, you know, and oy vey. Anyway,
Mm.
a lot of them, but like I mean, a lot of them. I have a lot of cousins who are in law enforcement, fire department, stuff like that. A lot of they are hardworking people. I mean, that's why you get so much tension. Is that a lot of these people are just trying to do a good job. They go into it for the right reasons, but the way the system kind of trains them now
Yeah.
on the front end, and then like conditions them the way there's really no like deterrent on the penalty phase. I think it's what the what we libertarians call a moral hazard.
Yes. Yes. It definitely is one of those things that I kind of harp on every now and then. It's like, look, if you got a neighbor who's hasn't come out of the house in a couple days and you noticed, get your butt up and go knock on the door. You do it yourself.
Right.
We just saw that over here in Fort Worth just a little while ago, where the neighbor saw the door open, so she called the cops, and now a woman's dead because she was standing in the window in her own house.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw that story. It was such an odd story.
Yeah. So, all right, you noticed that the door was open in the middle of the night. Okay, sure, it's a little weird that she was playing video games with her nephew at 2:00 in the morning, but still.
And the door, yeah.
Yeah. But still, go over there and knock. Find out yourself. And
Yeah.
if nobody's answering and you see dark shadows like trying to rifle through drawers and stuff, okay, maybe then call the cops.
And
But
it's rude in a way. Like I remember I lived in Dallas for a long time right after I got married, and with my husband, he's like, "Oh, that's a dangerous thing on this guy's whatever. I'm going to call the cops." And I was like, "Whoa. Whoa." When you're first married, you like have to square a few things, sort a few things out. And I was like, you don't call the cops on your neighbors ever.
yeah.
And if you have a problem with it, you go talk to them. If you don't have the nerve to go talk to them, then don't send your armed agent anonymously,
Right.
And he was like, "Oh, you're right." He just didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah.
And then another time they had a lot of solicitors where they would knock on your door and come in and like try to sell you, I don't know what, magazine subscriptions, but they were aggressive and they lied about what the purpose was.
Right.
And I let one in once and I was pregnant. My husband was not home and one of the neighbors came over and just started bitching. There was two girls bitching them out. "You get out of here, blah, blah, blah." And started yelling at me too. It was like, "You can't let people into your house," And I just was like, thought it was such a stand-up guy. I was like, wow, right on.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was fantastic. He was watching out for his neighbor and took matters into his own hands. I was blown away. That's when I fell in love with Texas.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of that here, and you'll actually find that kind of all over the South. I'm pretty sure that's even the case over there in Georgia too. So
I don't know. Atlanta's a little different. Atlanta is
Atlanta is a little different.
It is. It's really like inside the loop is very. It's a very melting pot. So you don't have like a consistent culture like that. And I was looking for the culture because for me as a New Yorker, I could fit in Texas
Yeah.
after I lived there for a little while because I just had to key into the culture, which I did. And I liked it. But in Atlanta, I really was just like casting about to do that. And I couldn't because there's so many subcultures.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a difference between Buckhead and downtown. It's
Absolutely. And
yeah.
Buckhead and Dallas,
Yeah, exactly. But I am still convinced that the city of Atlanta pays people to go out onto the interstate at rush hour just to drive slow in every lane to keep all the traffic.
Hey, man, some people go out there and protest. We've had that. And then we're convinced, my co-host Binkley and I are convinced that through his excellent, excellent work, that the I-85 collapse was intentional, was orchestrated, which so the highway collapsed onto another highway. And they said it happened because a homeless guy started a fire underneath it.
Oh, yeah, good old thermal expansion.
I guess in retrospect, it's hard to believe anyone didn't realize it was a setup.
Yeah. Oh man, you can start going down the rabbit hole on construction things gone wrong.
I wonder about that because there's so much of that, and I always look at it and I'm like, it's hard for me to believe that things can get that bad. What about there was one in New Orleans recently? Surely that was genuine.
The Hard Rock Cafe. It's
do you think there was something screwy about that?
I mean, you can point to stupidity being the absolute cause of it, and New Orleans is so rife with corruption, it's not even funny. So I wouldn't even be amazed if plans for that got kind of pushed through without any other kind of oversight. But all of that is going to go back to the engineer who puts the stamp on the drawings.
Yeah.
So
who is that person? Let's have a name.
Yeah, you'd have to do a lot of digging on that one, because even if the engineer stamps something and saying, yes, this is safe, it's to the ASTM standards, we're all covered there, or ISO 9000, whichever one that they're using. Yeah. And, the construction company, if they start cutting corners, it'll be definitely fought out in the courts for years. And really? Then it'll probably be settled at some point, because then you will never find out who was technically responsible for it.
Are you suggesting that there might have been a purpose to it, that it was done on purpose? Like, what could the purpose have been? I mean, this is what I love, so I want to know.
Oh, maybe with the Hard Rock Cafe, maybe there was no other purpose other than stupidity. But the levee breaking after Hurricane Katrina to flood out an entire neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that definitely had a purpose, because then people came in there and started buying up properties for pennies on the dollar. So
that happened in Detroit also, and I thought it was kind of weird.
It's still happening.
The guy
in Detroit
who bought up all that property is the same guy who was paying the rent of the mayor who went to jail and then moved to Dallas.
Oh,
I forget everybody's names, but there was
too much stuff to keep up with.
Yeah, but that idea that they deliberately destroy neighborhoods and then buy them up again, that the first time I heard that, I thought it was a little screwy, but now it seems like a pattern.
Yeah. And most of the time I'll operate off of the old cliche, you can't attribute to malice what you can easily explain by stupidity.
Oh, I hate that. I disagree. That's Hanlon's premise or whatever. Yeah. Hanlon's law. I hate it. Yeah. I think that's wrong. I think that's like the devil's greatest trick was convincing us he didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I'll kind of look at it from that lens and I'll say, okay, maybe they're just stupid and bad thing happened. And then you kind of look at who benefited off of it afterwards. And you're like, right. Okay, maybe.
And what's the best evidence against that? I think it's Hanlon's law. The best evidence against it is the FAA.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it might be inefficient or whatever. I don't know, whatever you want to say. But even in the past 10 years, there's been only a few U.S. commercial aircraft fatal accidents. Mm-hmm. And both of them, in my opinion, are PSYOPs. Both of them. So it's at least 10 years since no U.S. commercial run U.S. commercial run jet has been in a fatal accident. I think it's been more than 10 years. And we're talking tens of thousands of flights every single day.
Yeah.
So I think that's a sign of government competence when they want to.
Yeah. And when I was flying back to Baton Rouge last weekend, the little plane that we got on, couldn't even start its own engines. It didn't have enough. It didn't have enough juice to do it. So they bring out the little electrical cart.
Wow.
To sit there and literally jumpstart the plane. And
you brought your child on a plane like that?
No. I was going back to see them. They are coming to up to Dallas for a Christmas thing.
Okay.
But yeah, so they brought out the little electric cart, and that wasn't doing it. And so they bring in this 18-wheeler that's got this big diesel engine generator on it, and that started the plane right up. And so I was there thinking, I was like, all right, flying aluminum tube through the sky that can't even start its own engines. This is going to be fantastic. This is how Eric is going to go out.
That's not good. I used to worry a lot about air travel, and then I saw the statistics are undeniable. It's just so compelling that you can't. And that just shows that like my fear of flying was totally based on rational thought. Like people made fun of me, like it's not rational. I'm like, it's totally rational. These things are flying. It's like a ridiculous idea. And then I looked at the stats and I was totally convinced. And then I didn't have that fear anymore. So I might have been misinformed, but it wasn't illogical.
Yeah, and normally,
but that's what's amazing is that it's perfect. It's freaking perfect. So they can't figure out how to get ahead of a guy who's the cops were called on 35 times and he went to school with the sheriff's kids. Yeah. That's the Parkland story. The sheriff worked at that school for a while there.
Yeah.
And they
also
couldn't figure that out.
JROTC shirt.
Who?
Oh, I can't remember the kid's name. Yeah, he was wearing his JROTC shirt.
Was he really?
Yeah, that was one thing that everyone kind of misses in the story. It was like, yeah, he was like trying to go into ROTC.
That changes everything for me because that means he was connected to them. They had a relationship, and he was so like taken aback when they arrested him. I wonder if he was even on the spot.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of holes in that story as well.
Totally, and it's the day the internet shut down, so that's when, and then all my stuff started getting taken down after that. But that was the incident where I could not, like the stuff that I was finding was just disappearing.
Yeah.
There was no like other kids' videos being uploaded. There should have been at least 1,000 videos on that from every angle, at least 1,000. Because there was more than 1,000 kids. Year. Yeah.
Yeah. They're not all just like leaving their cell phones at the front of the class,
No, I mean, it should have been at least one per kid, if not like an hour per kid. Every single kid would have had his phone out to his own danger. They're so addicted to the phones.
Yeah, they would have been shooting video even if they were getting shot at.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There would be, shots fired both ways.
Yeah, so it's crazy. That's a crazy story, up and down.
It really is.
At bare minimum, it is definitely indicative of how dumb government can be. Because they knew about this kid for a long time.
But I don't think government can be that dumb. That's what I'm saying. That's why I think there's something else going on.
Well, I mean, just even for the normies out there, it's like, look, they knew about this kid.
Oh,
they didn't do anything about it. Why would you trust them with anything? Like healthcare or your driver,
it's
the
like
roads.
the Lysander Spooner thing. Whether it be intentional or an accident, scrap it.
Yeah, it's unfit to exist. Look at this.
Although I used to be super hardcore about that. I was totally unengaged in every way, just complete anarcho-capitalist, which I am. But when they asked me to do this show on WSB, just because like I met somebody who worked there, that I was like, but I have nothing to say. I don't care. I'm not following this stuff. This is an impossible situation. Like self-limiting government is a utopian fantasy, and I'm not like it's circle jerking with everybody about how to make it work.
Yeah.
But I for some reason, I think, my friend who worked there, like kind of convinced me, and I had to find a place. She's like, well, could you at least defend the Constitution? I was like, the Constitution is what got us into this trouble in the first place. And then, but I eventually realized, I have kids and stuff, I would rather kick the can than have the revolution, because I'm not sure people are on the same page for the revolution. So the Bill of Rights, like I can defend that as something that isn't a function of government. It is simply our expression of the dangers of government and asserting our rights, asserting the right to defend against that, and and requiring them to make a formal commitment that they respect those rights, and which they don't. But at least that's a piece of paper that we should rally around. And so, but yes, I do think that whether it be an accident or on purpose, it still discredits the entity, the institution.
Yeah. And that's the Constitution is what I'll use to win over some Republicans and win over some Democrats. And I was like, well, I mean, you guys want to say that somebody talking on the phone should be removed from office when he's done so much more horrible stuff than that. But you don't want to talk about that because then that'll indict your guy,
yes.
Speaking with
that
this
was
whole
the
Trump
Operation
thing. Yeah.
Fast and Furious thing. They wouldn't really pursue it because everybody was guilty, and that's how it actually works. That's how it works. See, that's the thing. This isn't like an anomalous case. It's how it works. I have to dig up that Blagojevich hidden audio. Remember the guy who went to jail?
Oh, Hot Rod Blagojevich.
Yes, good. I hadn't heard that one, but his story, like when you listen to those tapes, he talks about Obama knows that's not how it works. He also talks about all the wheeling and dealing he does, I think, for his father-in-law. And when you hear how he's talking about it, it's not that I think he's still in jail. I mean, they just locked him up and threw away the key.
Yeah, they're not going to let that guy near a news camera or a reporter or anything anytime soon.
Yeah. It's like, that's what I think Guantanamo is all about.
Talk about a guy who knows where the bodies are buried.
Yeah, like I don't think Guantanamo is about not giving those people trials. I think they're in there because they know stuff, and you can't give them a trial because they'd be innocent. You know, like they're not even. There's no evidence of crime. They're just political prisoners.
Yeah.
So, but if you listen to what he says, like, and you just and don't think he's the only guy doing it, the way he's talking about it so casually doesn't even shock people. That, I mean, that's how it actually. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, if there was a corrupt government system that's more corrupt than the entire state of Louisiana, it's definitely Chicago. So.
Yes, and they pride themselves in that, I think.
Yeah, that's why he was talking about it so casually. It's like
right. He loved it. He was like, Obama knows who he's answering to.
Yeah, this is just how we do business down here.
Yeah, this is the chain of command here, buddy.
Yeah, with Louisiana, we get a little more flair to it. When I moved up here, I guess I'm still on some kind of list, so I was getting text messages from the campaigns to remind me to go out and vote. So I got one from Eddie Rispone, which is the Republican challenger to John Bel Edwards, and it was like, remember, go down and vote for Eddie Rispone. I was like, I don't vote for socialists. And then I got a response back. It was like, well, he's not a socialist, he's a Republican. I said, okay, a socialist driving the speed limit.
Yeah, well, that's the problem is that they'll defend. My father always said that too. Like, he's just a socialist. I'm like, he would never call himself a Republican, only a conservative. But then even conservative got hijacked by neoconservatives.
Yeah.
So you couldn't even use that handle.
Oh, I melted one of my relatives' brains because she's a very lefty progressive type. And I was like, well, you guys are the new conservatives. And she was like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, you're trying to conserve the New Deal and everything that Woodrow Wilson tried to accomplish back 100 years ago.
Yes, that's what people don't realize. Like, conservatives, they use that term so loosely, but conservatives, like in England, were monarchists.
Yeah.
They were just the people who didn't want the change. And for us, conservatives were the ones who wanted to preserve the foundational principles.
Yeah.
Not so bad.
Yeah, and it's really fun to talk to the Republican conservatives, because when you start talking about core principles like property rights and non-aggression and everything, it's like the lights go off in their brain. They can't really
They're
come
trained.
up with it. Yeah, it was like, wait,
they're
what?
trained.
Huh?
And then with Trump, I mean, the debt is staggering. He is the one. The Republicans are the ones who broke the sequester.
Yeah.
I mean, it boggles the mind.
So much for your fiscal responsibility, right?
Yes, of course. And then I think Rand Paul came out with this big speech of how you don't want to break the mandate on Obamacare without breaking everything else because it'll lead to socialized medicine. And then they broke the mandate without any fanfare. It's like, if there's no mandate, there's no Obamacare, right?
Right.
But it's phase 2.
Yeah. And good old Rand Paul.
I know. I don't get that guy. I just don't get it.
When you're hot, you're hot. And then when you're not, you're really, really not.
I know. I don't get it. And it really, it has implications for the people he's connected to and where he came from. It makes you wonder.
Yeah, there was a meme going around with Rand Paul being Darth Vader and Ron Paul being Luke in Bespin.
Oh, that's so cute.
It was like, join me, dude. We could bring back liberty to the people. And then Rand Paul going, no.
I always defended Rand Paul in the beginning because I thought, okay, so he compromises. because he saw his uncompromising father, who said his primary goal in running for president was to get the message out.
Yeah, education.
And Rand was like, let's operate inside the Overton window and maybe we can get more good done. I'll do that. I'll try that. But it's clear that there's more to it than that.
Yeah, so I'll quote Samuel Conkin III here. Is like, yes, when you get arrested, the cop who joined the police force to change it from the inside will be the one slapping the cuffs on you. When the jury convicts you for whatever crime that they've made up against you, they also joined the jury because they wanted to work on the inside to change it. And then when you're being led down to the execution chamber, the executioner is the guy who joined to change it from the inside. And he just would go on and on with that stuff. You're like, oh, yeah.
I mean, there are a few people who cannot be bought, and I think they get killed. I think they get suicided or whatever.
Yeah.
I really think so. Or some kind of scandal, or, they're ruined, or some tragedy. Like, I wonder what happened to Travis Kalanick's mom, the Uber guy. Like, he was not cooperating with some government program. And it took me forever to find that. I was like, this is the craziest thing. They've been trying to get rid of him, trying to get rid of him, trying to get rid of him. His mother dies in a bizarre accident. And then the next day he's gone. And I was like, when did all the BS, the bad press about him, turn from funny to malicious to purposeful? And it was around the time that there was news about Project Greyball, where Uber would not help the authorities in some kind of surveillance.
Yeah.
So I think that there are people who stand firm, who think they have the power, and then they just get taken out.
Yeah.
One way or another.
And when I was living in Baton Rouge, I was a part-time Uber driver, and it was actually kind of fun to watch that because at first...
yes.
Yeah, it was illegal.
I love that.
Yeah, it was illegal for Uber to operate in Baton Rouge, but the city cops wouldn't do anything about it because we were keeping drunk college kids from getting behind the wheel.
Yeah.
So they had actually noticed the change in how many times they would have to go scrape up some, early 20-something off of the road in the morning. So that's a clear case of nullification working, and
it's such a great thing that is an end to drunk driving.
Yeah, and the free market has done more to curb drunk driving than any government program ever. So
yeah, although Uber had to have had some insider help, at least in San Francisco and New York, two places I lived.
Yeah, there's
where
no doubt about that.
Those cities, when I lived there, had terrible taxi situations, total monopoly of the taxi system. And if you had a non-official, like medallion taxi or whatever, they would slap like $1,000 fine on you. You could not pick somebody up off the street. It never would have worked if they didn't turn a blind eye to it. And by doing so, they took a government created market failure, which was there wasn't like enough cheap whatever.
Yeah.
And they allowed this newcomer to monopolize it. So there was something going on there. I don't know when it turned south, but I love what you're saying about like when I used to smoke cigarettes in New York, they always tried to like pass a law or whatever that you couldn't smoke inside. And I was like, New Yorkers are never going to listen to that.
Yeah.
So Giuliani, I think it was, or maybe Bloomberg changed it so that the bar owner could get a crippling fine. So then the bar owner had to enforce it. But prior to that, we just nullified that kind of crap.
Yeah, it's either my body, my choice, or it's not.
I know, right? And the same thing with gun rights and drug rights. It's like it's God gave you the right to guns, which he didn't even. You don't have a gun seed.
Yeah.
People say guns are bad for society. That's why they want to ban them. And you say that drugs are bad for society. What's the difference?
Yeah,
drug rights, baby.
Yeah, to people who say, well, you shouldn't have a weapon. I was like, well, I was born without fangs, stingers, and carapace armor. I need to defend myself.
Right.
And so we made these weapons to do it a little more efficiently, and it's not up to you to say
it's
what
the great
I use.
equalizer. Not one person who's ever used the hashtag #MeToo should be against universal gun ownership, at least for women. Yeah. Let's just say, if you wanted to make gun laws, don't make them apply to women. I'm being facetious, but think about it.
Yeah, and the fastest growing group of new gun owners is African Americans, females.
Females, yeah.
Yeah, the African American females.
Why is that significant to you? Why is the African American part significant? Don't get it.
Well, they have been told all of their life that guns are bad, guns are dangerous because you live in a crime-ridden area, because they make those general sweeping broad brush strokes and everything.
Yeah.
And so the women in those communities, the women in those communities is like, well, this is some bullshit. If I can't,
well, that's what I always thought about.
If I can't defend myself.
Right. When they crack down on gun rights and they also ease up on policing in the inner city, I mean, that is just taking innocent people in those communities who don't have enough money or the desire to leave their communities completely defenseless.
Yeah.
Completely defenseless. And I predicted, because it was pretty obvious, that places where they did that, like Baltimore, was going to have skyrocketing murder rates in those places, which they do.
Yeah. And so I'm all for women arming up and getting better trained than the men,
Yeah. And then when you look at like India, where they have, I think, total gun ban. I don't know. But I had somebody call me and be like, you shouldn't have guns here. It's India. And I'm like, you guys have the most horrible rape problem in the world. We get stories of like people getting gang raped on the city buses and everything, like crazy stories out of there.
Yeah.
And if everybody knew that the women had guns, I think like domestic violence and rape basically goes down to zero.
There is something to be said for that old cliche: an armed society is a polite society.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't get messed with because I'm over 6 feet tall and kind of a big guy.
That's what I think is like the Eric Garner case where the guy got choked to death on the ground, or
for attacks.
It wasn't. Right, but he was interfering with someone who was restricted by the government from doing what he was doing. Right. So that guy, the store owner's hands were tied, but I don't care. But the fact is, I'm not quibbling about that. But the Eric Garner thing, he was acting like a guy who had physical strength.
Yeah.
Like I would never mouth off to a cop like that. But he was a guy who had confidence because he was large.
Yeah.
And so that shows you that, outside weaponry is the great equalizer if you care about people who are oppressed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you're right. African-American women, the Starbucks thing where they like got everybody in a room and it was just like, you are hated. It's like, you know what? People are going to be mean to you when you want to use the bathrooms. Like, I don't know about that because I've got open carry. And I think she's going to let me use the bathroom, not because you would threaten her, but because you're right. It's just a level of equalizing and politeness that you can achieve with. That's why Tesla wanted to create a weapon, an easy to use, really powerful, small, portable weapon, because he wanted world peace.
Yes. He wanted everybody down to the individual to be able to repel any kind of attack.
So it's such that's why they locked him in a room forever.
Yeah, the guy who invented the Gatling gun also said this will be the most horrendous thing on the battlefield, and this will get wars to stop. But
what did get wars to stop really is nuclear weapons. If you look at death from war prior to nuclear weapons, it's like you can hardly see the statistic after that.
Yeah, and I quibble about the statistics sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, the Iraq War has, what is it to date, like 6,000 dead U.S. soldiers?
Yeah.
All right, well, there's a reason for that. Let's say you are driving in a truck and IED goes off and it blows your leg off, but they are able to stop the bleeding from the femoral artery. They immediately try to get you outside of the boundaries of the country to go to a hospital ship in the Gulf or up to Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany. If you die of your wounds up there, you have died of your wounds, but not because of a war casualty.
Yeah,
so you
and then the
counted.
deaths and injuries, that ratio used to be like 1 to 3, something like that, and that's probably gotten skewed. And also, now that you mention it, or now that we're thinking about it a little harder, I don't think the statistics of civilians and people like in Iraq who were killed really, like, you have to count those people. You have to count everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure they are all counted.
Yeah. Dead and displaced, it's in the millions. But,
yeah, that's true.
We're not
injured. Yeah, you're right.
Because those are brown people who call God a funny name.
Yeah, it's not. Well, but that's not why. That's why people say it is, but it's not why.
No, well, they're also sitting on a ton of resources as well. So
that's it. Yeah, I mean, they create the religious and tribal problems. I really think that's why JFK, that was his epiphany, that he saw what the CIA was doing in Africa and like creating tribal issues to justify our involvement there. And his last speech at American University had stuff like that in it. Like, this is going to be not a Pax Americana. It's going to be a real peace for everyone. And it was like, oh my gosh, he's out.
Yeah. The JFK thing, that's, that's another road that we can go down at some point. But, you can just take a look at China going into Africa right now. They haven't fired a single shot. They're all over the place down there. Why? They're building roads.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah.
I mean, they're using capitalism against capitalists.
Yeah. Well, I think they're fascist at this point, but I've always said that, like, they're like, who will build the roads? I'm like, the guys who build the shopping centers and the housing developments, they do now.
If like
they do it already.
Yeah, for the Chinese, it's like, hey, we need a road to go to this mining site that we now have control over. We'll build all of the roads in your town.
Right.
And
you know what?
Just give us access to do it.
The interstate highway system, which is this externally imposed road system.
Yeah, it doesn't make any kind of sense,
and it destroys. And first of all, like, to say that keeps us safer, I'm like, well, if invading armies can, you'd have to control every mile of it the whole time, like the resources to control that so that it isn't used against us, I think is maybe unreasonable unless they all have little bombs in them. Yeah. But also what it did, like, think about the impact of health. Now we say stuff like we want local farming, whatever, if it's in season, if it's near you, it's better for you. Right. The reason that is more expensive rather than less expensive is because of those highways.
Right.
And even like small batch factories and everything now are completely doable. So you could have local pretty much anything at this point.
Yeah.
At this technology, but you don't need it because of that stuff, which subsidizes probably Chinese goods, really, more than anything else. Obviously, because that is the stuff that we're getting.
Yeah, and when I was living in Louisiana, there was a big problem with the Chinese crawfish. They would rather ship it in because it was so cheap, and it wasn't.
And think about that. Yeah. What screwed up regulatory system could possibly make that the economic answer?
Well,
that kind of shipment, that kind of refrigeration. Yeah. Think about that.
Yeah, it's completely stupid. I mean, why would I want to eat a Chinese crawfish when there is a ditch not more than 100 yards from my house that I can go get crawfish out of?
Get it myself, and that's how the pot thing is going to go too. They're going to make it so that you can't grow and sell. I'm sure it's already like that. Grow and sell.
Oh yeah. Like, even back in the 90s when medicinal marijuana was starting to come around, Marlboro and, Philip Morris and RJR, they all had protections on growing that stuff because if you got medicinal marijuana, it was all rolled on their machines and it got sent to you in the mail in a little tin. So
they already had a foothold in it.
Yeah.
And of course they're going to make it regulated. And I remember saying, don't do the medicinal marijuana because it's a registry.
Yeah.
And then Hawaii, I just saw a headline flash across the screen. I didn't follow up on it, but it said Hawaii using marijuana registry as a gun ban.
Oh, yeah. We just, I want to say there was a story out of Illinois, a lady who had a firearms owner ID, also had a medicinal marijuana card. And she let it lapse, and so they did a SWAT raid on her house.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think that one just came out a few days ago.
That reminds me of this Project Guardian that Bill Barr just came out with on Wednesday, where they said they're going to communicate state, local, and federal to find people who applied for gun licenses and were rejected.
Yeah.
And they're going to pursue those people and see if they can catch them on something. And if they were rejected on mental illness grounds, they're going to see if they can start interventions on them. So that what you just said is a perfect example of how they use those registries as alerts to pursue somebody. That makes me sick. That is terrible.
And then they wonder why I'm against gun registries in the Form 4473.
Of course. Background checks are gun registries.
Yeah. Sure. It may not go to the government office. It's still kept at the gun dealer.
I think it isn't, though. I think this Project Guardian is making inroads into that.
Yeah.
What's the NCIS thing or the NICS? What's the national?
Oh, the NIC system, National Instant Check System. That stuff is it's ridiculous. The last time I bought a rifle at a gun store, they came back in 10 minutes and it was like, yeah, everything's good to go. I was like, okay, great. But I know in the back of my mind, okay, now they know that I have a .308 rifle.
Right.
You know,
Right. And if something like your marijuana registry lapsed, wow, that is nuts.
yeah, and if
So if you ever checked into, if you filled a Prozac prescription,
yeah,
does that get to them?
yeah, it has to, because
I mean,
everything's
I
on
think
the
that's it. I think that's what this convergence of all information is getting to, which was like it was the 1974 Privacy Act that stopped all that, and I think that's still in effect. I don't think they repealed that.
well, yeah, the
So
one
I'd
thing
like
that
this to be
the
challenged.
trying to update the computer system for everyone's healthcare, that all gets reported. It has
Yeah.
to. That it's a little phrase that we like to call vertical integration. So
Yes.
send everything up. So
Yeah. It's scary.
and then when you try to point this out to stuff, then they'll just like, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. I was like, well, here's the facts. Yeah.
But it's happening, and as they come out, I remember there was a lot. Eric Holder did a lot of this stuff, and people inside the government were objecting to it as against the law.
Oh, Mr.
And
Oklahoma City himself, huh?
yeah, and nobody was Holder the OKC guy.
Yeah, he was around for the Oklahoma City bombing. I think he was
You
like
know,
a U.S. attorney or something like that.
okay, there was another guy who was Obama's choice for the Supreme Court. He was highly instrumental in OKC, but he never got in. It was before
Merrick Garland, I think. Was
Yes.
one of, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. OKC, I guess, was a training ground, like a vetting process.
We're gonna go after white supremacists that rob banks. I was like, okay, let the local police take care of it.
Yes.
Why do we need an FBI?
And I know that's the other thing. The DOJ and the FBI. The DOJ was started, from what I can tell. I've never read this, but I never read anybody analyze it really. But I just looked back at the history of the DOJ, and it was established after the Civil War to get the southern states to abide by federal laws that they were effectively nullifying.
Yeah.
So that's what it's there for. It's there solely to circumvent the Constitution.
Yeah.
Solely.
Hasn't
that's what it's
lived
for.
up to its name. It's not a Department of Justice,
And it gets worse every day because people fall for these emotional events that, I mean, you could say it's incompetence, that they have the most sophisticated surveillance state of all time, and they can't see this stuff coming, like the Parkland thing,
Yeah.
that this stuff is happening anyway. So why are we giving them this power to violate the Constitution when it doesn't help anyway? Or they're letting those things happen because they know that, or creating them because they know that emotionally people will give up their rights if they think that those rights are creating a danger to them.
Yeah, and just let something happen, and then we'll come by with the response that we've already had pre-canned.
Right.
And that'll sound good to the ignoramuses out there that just watch TV all day.
Yeah.
Because they go out and vote.
I know. And then if they vote wrong,
yeah,
if they vote for somebody who doesn't make sense, then we'll have to have an impeachment.
Because he says mean things on Twitter. He calls CNN
I know.
fake news. Oh my gosh.
It's so nothing, too. It's like what he does is just so obviously dramatic.
Yeah, he's just a bro. I mean, if you want to take it down to basic terms.
I think that he acts like one. I think he's an actor. But
yeah, definitely.
Even so, it doesn't matter. It's not that big a deal. You look at his policies. They should love his policies.
Yeah, it's all the same stuff.
I mean,
yeah,
debt and war. Everybody loves welfare and warfare. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's all the same. Why do people get so crazed about it?
Continuing the genocide in Yemen that Obama started. I mean, that should be the reason why he's impeached. But they're not going to do it because Golden Boy Obama did it.
Right. He silenced the anti-war left forever.
So, I mean, they want to talk to us about whataboutism all the time. I was like, well, if it fits.
Yes.
I'm not saying what he's doing is better.
And it makes me nuts because the people who want to justify what Obama did will say, I don't know if the people on the left say it, but the people on the right use what Obama did to justify the official narrative. Well, he got in there and he saw how bad it all was.
Yeah.
So in good conscience, he couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, he couldn't not bomb the crap out of everybody because that's how bad it is. Even the liberals are doing it. It's like, no, this is a scam.
Yeah, when Obama first took office, like all the Republicans out there is like, well, now he's going to see how terrible it is out in the world, and he's just going to have to do what George Bush was doing. And,
right.
That was Trump
the way that they're going to say the same thing. Well, the beautiful babies, I didn't realize they were babies.
There's always babies and incubators that get
Yemen
thrown out onto the floor.
Yemeni babies are not cute, though. They're not beautiful.
Well, once again, they're brown,
But the Syrian babies are beautiful.
Oh, of course.
Right? He was bombing them.
Yeah. Yeah. Bashar al-Assad, who shaves his chin every morning, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. He's a medical doctor. I'm sure he doesn't. Yeah. His brother was supposed. Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's possible. Yeah, you might be right about that. But his brother was the one who was supposed to be the heir. And I think he died in a car accident. So now this guy had to take over.
Yeah.
And his whole thing, like his father was bloody Assad or whatever, because he put down a Muslim Brotherhood uprising in Homs in 1984. And the Muslim Brotherhood is like an Egyptian organization. It's Syrian and Egyptian. I think Syria and Egypt were one country for a couple of days. But anyway.
Yeah,
so,
I think it all started in Egypt, because I remember there was a video posted from the Egyptian president. I want to say it was like in the late 50s or early 60s.
Nasser.
Yeah, and he was talking about one of the Muslim Brotherhood people coming to tell him to have his daughter have his daughter's hair covered up, and he was like, "Well, I've seen your daughter without a takfir or a hijab on,
Right.
And you guys can't even patrol your own cells. What makes you think I can do it for the rest of the country?"
Well, and Nasser also outed them as being infiltrated by British intelligence,
which they were,
Yes. So when Assad's family is putting down these, I don't know what you want to call them, radicals or infiltrators or whatever, it's in a different context. That's the kind of thing that the same people who argue for us going over there argue because you want to suppress this stuff. You want to suppress terrorism, suppress radical Islam, whatever.
Yeah.
So like he should be their hero. He's a secular guy putting down the radicals. I mean, I don't know enough about it to justify any of that, but I'm just saying it's all in how you read it.
Yeah. Yeah. And all that stuff is, the Liberty Memes page on Facebook, had this great thing of a woman reading a newspaper and she was surprised, and the tag was FBI foils FBI's own terror plot. Because every time you read something about, I was like, oh, well, we caught this terrorist and he was planning on bombing a mall. It was like, but then when you're reading the story, FBI agents, lured him in and was talking to him.
All of his accomplices. This is where it's starting to get wacky, is that all of the accomplices are agents. And that was, I keep talking about this article because it keeps meaning more and more to me. There was a Quartz article about the origin of Google. And it was really like beyond what we've seen before about that, which is pretty big. And what he was saying was that the main reason was that searches will reveal your true inner self better than anything else, basically, I think. And that would let the government categorize or cordon off birds of a feather.
Yeah.
And then in other stuff, the memetics stuff from the Defense Department says how influential, important the community is, like a person's community really influences them. That I've read other stuff like that in the Army War College and everything. So they can control like the birds of a feather group if with AI, for example. So like the way the sting works, where all of them are FBI agents except for this one guy they arrest, they could do that in the virtual world to every single person without any manpower required, is what I think is one of the things that AI and Google and all that is going to do, if not already does.
Yeah, like I said before, I mean, that was just Echelon with prettier packaging, because it was all keyword searches. It would just sniff out everything that was going over the telephone lines, emails, text messages, and everything, and it would just put all these keywords together.
Really? I didn't know that's how that worked.
Yeah, so
I knew it was a surveillance thing. It was the 5 eyes, right?
Right. Yeah, so,
but I didn't know it worked like that.
And then when Alphabet came out with this, we've got this thing called Google, and it's going to be a great search engine. That's all it was. It was just Echelon with keyword searches.
But they did it. But this article suggests that they didn't just come out with it. They found the guy who could do it, and Sergey Brin. They found him.
Yeah.
To do it.
Yeah, it's and then, even if you're not involved in any kind of criminal organization or any kind of terrorist group or anything, just think about what you're putting into Google.
I know.
I've got
I
some
know.
I've got some medical symptoms I might want to find out because my doctor
Yes.
told me about it. So great. All right,
That's
now they have access to what you've been searching medically.
what you're afraid of or what you have or how to get you. I know. I
Yeah.
think that too. And they can target you. So teenagers, I've noticed this, they're bombarded constantly with mental illness diagnostics.
Oh,
So
yeah,
they're
yeah.
constantly thinking they have some mental illness. And you could really, if you wanted to target somebody and you knew their vulnerabilities in that way, you could really make people crazy.
Yeah, and that's the other part of it. Okay, well, I think I have some kind of depression. Let me go look up a psychologist in my area.
Oh boy. And then
Oh,
then
but I
that's
also
a flag.
own a gun. Yeah.
Yeah, they show up at your house.
You get put on a list. So I've just kind of lived my life. I just assume I'm on every list.
Yeah, that's why I try not to get chilled because they
Yeah.
can make stuff up. They can create fake emails. I've been on lists. Not even me. Like I was on a list because I have the same name as a drug dealer, and I was missing planes all over the place. And I mean, it was quite annoying. And they don't tell you that you're on a list. You just like that random button goes off and you get detained, but they don't tell you it's you.
Yeah, they. I'm pretty sure Monica Perez is a fairly common name.
Yes.
Yeah, but
among drug dealers.
Yeah, drug dealers, just anybody. I'm pretty sure if you could.
Yes, it's very common. The first name and the last name are very common.
I was about to say you can go anywhere in South and Central America and just throw a rock and you probably hit a Monica Perez out there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean there are Monica Perez's like with radio shows and TV shows. Like you can't even write Monica Perez podcast without like getting redirected to Chile or something. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have one of those names that is pretty much only to me. So.
Right. So you can't. They're going to find you.
Yeah, they will definitely find me.
I know. Actually, it is good. It is good. I've noticed that like it's lucky that I took. I mean, it's just my name. And when I was on the terrestrial radio, like I just used my name. But fortunately, it's kind of generic.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder. I was like, man, maybe I should have changed my name to Michael Johnson or something.
But
I
how?
could have hidden the crowd.
But how can maybe you can be anonymous from each other.
Yeah.
But not from them. Like I almost feel like it's better to just be out so that I don't know. I feel like either you're completely under the radar, which you can't be against the surveillance state, or you're just as out as you possibly can so that if they do want to persecute you, it will raise questions because everyone will know what you've been up to.
Yeah, and like I was telling Joel from Evaporain on the episode that I did with him.
Yeah, I just love that. He's such a good grasp of the fundamentals and how it applies to the regulatory state. I loved it.
I was like, yeah, they're going to go after the people who are the most vocal about it. But if you got others that are being just as vocal, it's their hands are going to be tied on that because then they can't really do anything without everyone asking a bunch of questions.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, they really have to find. They only take matters into their own hands when it's. I think it's someone charismatic with a lot of influence. So I started to wonder about the Anthony Bourdain suicide. I feel like if you're.
There was a bunch of stuff like his girlfriend was having sex with a teenager.
Well, that was the thing. I said that I'm going to accept this suicide at face value unless that. Argento's Harry Weinstein story turns out to be screwy because he would not cover that up. I don't think he would have covered it up. And then it turned out her story was screwy.
Yeah. The other thing,
there was that element to it. I shouldn't say her Weinstein story is screwy. I don't know anything about that. But then she was the perp on the sexual harassment.
Yeah, she was the one who got the whole Me Too thing started. And
no, wasn't that the other one? Wasn't that McGowan?
Well, I think Rose McGowan has always been kind of a big mouth when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Okay.
She's been talking about Hollywood being a cesspool for a long time.
Really?
Even back when she was doing that show Charmed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a reason why several of the projects with her in it got canceled or new actresses were brought in.
Oh,
yeah, they'll throw that typical, difficult to work with in quotations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or when they go in for casting, it was like, well, I hear she's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to make it sound like she's crazy, but as it turns out, no, this stuff was actually going on.
Yeah, she's just non-conforming.
Yeah, she's just not buying your bullshit. That's all it is.
Or peddling it
yeah.
is really what they're there for.
Yeah. So, I mean, they like to do that. I think Shannon Doherty was another one of those. It was like, I've finally gotten tired of being pushed around and stuff by this industry. I'm just going to start talking out about it. And then, next thing you know, you're out of work.
Yeah, for sure. Because you don't hear from them anymore. And I think like Britney probably had a little bit of a break from, a mental break.
Oh, when she shaved her head and everything? Yeah.
Yeah, from being, and I think she did that because they told her that they could get like a drug test from a hair follicle. My guess is that's why she did that. Not just as a lunacy thing, but as a rational response to a threat.
Yeah.
But I think she just couldn't do the Katy Perry thing or the Taylor Swift thing where you just like, cradle to career, whatever, cradle to grave,
yeah.
a created person. I think she had that little bit of a break, and I think she got back, found a spot where she could still operate. But maybe some of these people just get completely pushed out because they really cannot serve the function and could even damage it by continuing to be influential.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that in Hollywood where, scriptwriters will kind of sneak stuff in every now and then, but they're not going to be very out and vocal with it. I think if I sat down with the Russo brothers and talked to them about Captain America Civil War, I think their thinking is probably a little more in line with ours. But in that system, they're definitely not going to say anything. They're not going to be very out loud with it.
Yeah, I don't know how many people can really survive there who still think freely.
Yeah, that's a tough thing, and you're an actor, but you're going to have to act 24/7 because you got to make them believe that you believe what they believe. That's a tough thing.
I think they try to find true believers. I think that's a better way to do it. Like, I think that's how the media works. I think that's how the news media works, is that, first of all, the low-hanging fruit is the stuff on the headline. So if you do want to be in that industry and you don't want to be put up to have to really do a lot of research and answer a lot of questions and defend your position.
Right.
Just taking what the New York Times has already concluded, or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal, you don't have to figure that out at all. You have to learn what that story is. And that's the thing about people who read those newspapers and they think they're all truly informed and talk down to me, for example. And I'm like, look, all you're doing is you're proud of yourself because you have comprehended their story within their paradigm.
Right.
And that's it. So that's it. And that's kind of complicated because you have to really get your mind around this little nugget without thinking beyond it. And that's why a lot of times those stories don't really make a ton of sense because they kind of feel like you're missing something. I think because they have to craft it very specifically. A lot of times it's whitewash. Like this week, I was reading a Wall Street Journal article about Marie Yovanovitch, the former ambassador to Ukraine, which was so clearly a whitewash because I knew the real details that the story just did not make sense at all. This is just, but that wasn't even true. And this was sarcastic. I'm like, sarcastic? You're actually saying that a quote was sarcastic in a newspaper? How do you know it was sarcastic? Some anonymous source said it was sarcastic?
Oh, that kind of stuff drives me up the wall. It was, especially when I read in a news story, it was like, well, what his thinking was. I was like, oh, you just know what they were thinking when they said something?
It's preposterous when you look at it, and then people read it and they're just so proud of themselves because they could regurgitate that story in a way that makes sense, but you can't really answer questions about it. Your understanding can't be probed because it's just superficial, but as a news reporter, no one will probe your understanding if it conforms with what those publications are putting out. Whereas if you deviate at all from that script, then your ideas do get probed and you have to do more work and you have to defend it and you have to put up with ridicule.
Right.
So with the acting and the media, I feel like they're much better off just finding people who have that very kind of their Overton window is even narrower than the general population, and they're all in it together. So there isn't going to be that much. And then if you find somebody who maybe you picked as a child but really had a bigger brain than you realized, then because the brain can't be too big or too small.
Yeah.
Then if you step out, then maybe you become quote difficult, like you said.
Yeah, I've always loved that. And it was like, okay, are they really difficult to work with? Like they're, some condition is broken and they're going to start yelling at a lighting guy on the set of a movie, or is it something else?
Right. And then you do see people who have those things. Like you'll see a vulgar rant come out about somebody and they don't lose their jobs. Sue Simmons, I remember in New York, she was caught on a hot mic, just like in the most vulgar terms, reaming out whatever, like a cameraman or some powder puff girl or something. And it didn't ruin her career.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, Bill O'Reilly is another case of that,
Oh,
the whole fuck it, we'll do it live thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's kind of funny to watch, but it was like, you just got to think, all right, if he's like this and there's cameras rolling because he's a presenter,
yeah.
Imagine what the cameras aren't rolling and the stuff that he says. So
yeah, and it's not, and it just proves that being difficult is no deal breaker.
Yeah, yeah. People will still work with dickheads. The Christian Bale thing where he was yelling at a lighting guy for being in his sight line. Okay, maybe Christian Bale was having a bad day, but audio and video is rolling while you're doing all that. So
yeah, well,
the lighting guy still works.
Probably had a lot of bad days. Because did you ever hear the story of him and like his mom and his sister? Just going and just really having like a cop calling knockdown drag out with them.
Yeah. I
mean, I'm not saying he did it or didn't do it, but I'm just saying like he sounds like a guy who's a little touchy, a little tetchy, as they say over there.
A little touchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when Brits start yelling at each other, then all the creative curse words come out, which I'm a little jealous that we don't have over here in the United States. But
yes, and I think they can yell at each other without raising their voices, which is another clever trick.
Yeah, I grew up in a Sicilian household. There was no
really.
Yeah, there was no subtlety to anything. If you were upset about something, you were upset about something.
Name like Eric the Red. I pegged you for a Norseman.
Yeah, I'm half German, quarter Sicilian, and a quarter Scot. So my red hair actually comes from the Germanic side. And so I'm kind of big and burly like a Viking. So that name just kind of stuck in high school.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, I'll just be Eric the Red. It's fine. It fits. My name's Eric.
But Sicilian was your dominating culture as a child?
Yeah, my mom is half German, half Sicilian. So we grew up with the Sicilians in the house. So
right.
Yeah, so we had a bunch of uncles that weren't necessarily related to us. I actually got stopped at a wedding because me and my dad both have red hair, and it's like, who let the mix in,
Yes, absolutely. But hey, man, you need to shake up the bloodline once in a while.
So it was always fun. You got to hear a lot of curse words. People calling other people bastardo and everything. So
and the food.
Oh, the food never stops.
Yeah, baby. And Christmas is coming. You're gonna get your fish stew. Is that Sicilian? The red sauce fish stew. Is that a? Yeah. Did you guys grow up with that?
Yeah, we grew up with a lot of seafood in the house. So I, knew from a young age what squid ink pasta actually tasted like.
Yeah.
And you'd see some of these people like, wait, squid ink pasta? I was like,
so good.
Yeah. You fry up the tentacles and you use the ink sac to flavor the sauce. And they're like, what?
That's disgusting.
He's like, I might as well just told him that we chew on toenails and everything. But I was like, yeah, all this stuff is pretty good. And somebody had posted some crazy picture of a turkey being stuffed with an octopus, and I put, as a quarter Sicilian, I like where this is going.
Yeah, me too. I would totally eat that. I always wanted to eat the heads, but I'm not Italian. But my father is Syrian and German, which I count as Italian.
That pretty close.
I feel like
anything on the Mediterranean, we're pretty much all mixed anyway. So I sometimes joke, I was like, yeah, I'm a quarter Sicilian. I'm probably more African than Elizabeth Warren is Cherokee.
Yeah, I think that too. So I do think that like it's the barbarians from the north and the Mamelukes or whatever from the south, and that ended up that's where you get because people always growing up always thought I was Italian. Yeah,
I mean you kind of have that Sicilian look to you a little bit.
It's that
hair,
my husband's heritage is Puerto Rican, and his father grew up in Mexico City, so it has all that stuff. And somebody was talking about AOC and asking me not to criticize her because she's such a good example for Puerto Ricans.
No, she's not. She's not a good example.
I know.
At all.
I know. But anyway, so like it came out, the guy was like, and you don't look Puerto Rican anyway, you look like a light-skinned Mediterranean. I was like, wow, you're good.
Yeah.
But it's so long ago, it's over 100 years ago since any of my family came over that I wouldn't even know. I've got no connections. I can't go back. I can't tap into that culture. Just American.
No right of return for Monica Perez and I. So
no, although I am a citizen of Ireland, and I tweeted that I was so excited, and my I actually got it also for my son who has Down syndrome. After Obamacare, I was like, where do they still have kids with Down syndrome if the chips fly here?
Definitely not in Iceland.
Not nicely. Yeah, my son and all his friends are like, there's this weird thing that got in their head. Like, not weird, but it's funny that it penetrates their psyches. He's like, I am never going to Iceland. I don't know what's wrong with those people, but I'm not. He doesn't even really fully understand the concept, but like they all know, don't go to Iceland. But I got him Irish citizenship because of that. And it was possible because I'm a citizen of Ireland, and I tweeted it, and there's, Irish nationalists who are probably in The Hague somewhere and have nothing to do with Ireland, started harassing me on Twitter. And, I'm like, hey, payback's a bitch, buddy. Like we took my ancestors and now we want to come back. But
yeah. So it's kind of one of those things. I grew up with that Mediterranean culture and everything. So when I go to other restaurants like Lebanese and stuff, and I'll eat all that stuff, you'll see something that's like, normally the white people don't like that kind of stuff. I was like, no, bring it to me. You got grape leaf stuff with lamb? I'll take it.
Yes. I grew up on stuffed cabbage, which was lamb.
Yeah. So
freaking delicious.
Yeah.
It takes forever.
Yeah, so a lot of times when people come over for Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, and we've got like tomato salad, olives, and stuff on the table, like why you got? I was like, no, just go with it.
So good, yeah, so good. But my mother was the Irish one, so there wasn't a whole lot of cooking. You got corned beef and cabbage was about. She makes a mean corned beef and cabbage, but she's not rolling grape leaves. That's for sure.
Definitely not rolling grape leaves or eating a goat and everything.
When I went to Ireland and we were like traveling for a long time, and I ended up at this pub and ordered something to eat, and I was like, "This is so good! It's so good!" And the waitress looked at me like thinking it's not that good, and she said, "Hunger makes a great sauce."
Yes. There's a lot of truth into that.
Oh, this isn't good? She's like, not really.
Yeah, I've often wondered the first person who saw a crab or a lobster on a beach somewhere and just said, I'll bet that's pretty tasty with butter on it.
Yeah, that was one hungry MFer, that's for sure.
Because I was like, oh, this giant sea insect, there's no way that's going to be good.
This hard, yeah, and even when you open it, you're like, what's that green stuff?
Well, down in Louisiana, we suck the heads, and there's a reason for that, because that's where all the tasty stuff is at. So.
Yep, I do. I have learned from my husband, who's from Houston, how to eat a crawdad and other stuff. The pinch. What is it? Pinch and.
Yeah, pinch and twist. Yeah.
Pinch and twist.
Yeah. And that's even kind of funny with the whole crawfish thing, because that only came about because of the Depression. It used to be shameful to eat something.
Bugs.
Yeah, to eat something that came out of a ditch.
Yeah.
So people would boil up this crawfish, and then if strangers came over or their neighbors came over, they threw a sheet over the top of it, so you wouldn't be caught eating it.
No way.
Yeah, and then like all other poor people food, it becomes like the new cuisine a generation later.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so like oxtail soup, that stuff is excellent, but that was poor people food because that was the only meat that they could afford.
Oh, I grew up eating scrapple.
Yeah, scrapple,
tell me.
tripe.
Scrapple, not tripe. I didn't get. We never went for tripe, but there was a lot of scrapple.
Yeah, and then what most people consider Italian cooking these days, that was like all poor people food from New York. That's just what they made.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, and that's what a lot of Southern stuff is. Just the cast-offs from the fancy tables.
Yeah, the muffaletta is a great example of that. German bread makers and Italians.
Po' boy.
Yeah.
Debris.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah. You look at that stuff and it's like, oh man, this looks like it would just taste horrible. But nope, it's the greatest stuff ever.
NOLA is my favorite city in the world. I want to retire there. My husband's like, your liver wouldn't last a decade. And then when you get into the airport in New Orleans, there's a huge banner that actually says #1 in liver transplants. Have you ever seen that in the New Orleans airport?
Yeah, I think I've seen that at MSY. Right now, it's kind of a nightmare. You don't want to go to MSY. You just gotta try to find some. Yeah, it's under construction, and I don't think they know how to direct traffic. It's
that happened to me when I think we were there for Jazz Fest this year, and it took us an hour to get off the airport property.
Yeah, it's a mess. At some point they'll figure it out, but it's not.
They've got to fix it by next Jazz Fest. I think the Who is going to be there.
You got to fix it by February because that's when Mardi Gras is. Yeah.
Oh, I can never do Mardi Gras. I'm just not taking my shirt off. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it.
To the dismay of everybody around. Oh.
Well, maybe in the day, I don't know, but I just can't. I just can't do it. I've got a line.
Yeah.
Draw the line.
Well, that's good. That's good.
I've got to keep
there's many ladies down there that don't have that line, so
right, they can handle that. I'll do Jazz Fest. I can make great cocktails.
Yeah, there we go, cocktails. Oh, that's the other thing. Your YouTube channel, have you put any new recipes up?
So it is. I put my recipes on the blog, which is monicamixes.com.
Yep.
Great recipes. I have like 5 full recipes, and I'm about to start the 12 drinks of Christmas. It's going to be great.
Nice.
But the videos are, to make them really good quality, you need like camera angles. I made a few already.
Yeah.
But I haven't posted them because like each one, I really want them to like be there for the ages.
Right.
Like I'm not just hacking them up there. Like if I'm doing a pre-show video, what's up today on the podcast, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I've done that plenty, but like this it's really like for me, I love them and I want to put them up there. So I'm hoping that my like 4th one's a charm, and I'm going to try to get that out by Christmas. And then I feel like if I've got the template down of how to do it, because it took like 2 or 3 hours to set all the stuff up, and I'd have to like buy another tripod and borrow someone's phone for like a different angle and get a like lapel mic and a little zoom thing. I'm telling you, every time I try to do it, and it's like 4K, so I've like to spend an hour putting makeup on and blow dry my hair. So it's like, but here's the upside to it, which I absolutely love. It's like the equivalent of a regulatory barrier to entry.
Yeah.
If you want to make a really high quality thing, and like what I found out is that I could make it, and then by the time I like got through all that rigmarole, I really wanted to have like a better conversation. So I was like, oh, I really need to like think hard about like how do you make tequila? Like let me think of the good anecdotes from when actually tequila maybe was the only time I took my shirt off. But I want to tell the stories and have some fun, and I just didn't even have time after all the hard work of that. But because it is it really is a bigger commitment than I had realized.
Yeah.
Having a high quality product isn't just like a dime a dozen.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel really myself, and it's basically just an audio of the podcast with my logo on it, and that's it. And there's oftentimes was like, well, I need to invest in want to start doing like man on the street interviews where I'm just going to ask somebody some kind of libertarian-ish topic and see if I can convert them on the spot and everything. But then I realized, okay, I'm going to need a camera guy. I'm going to need
it's a pain.
Yeah.
It's a huge pain. And I had the reason I stopped doing the YouTube, putting my show on my YouTube channel, is that my WSB show on the Parkland shooting was given a strike on YouTube. And if you get 3 strikes, you get off of YouTube. And I have subscribers there. And I couldn't have anticipated that something on the airwaves on terrestrial radio was going to be something strike-worthy. They wouldn't explain it to me. They wouldn't answer my appeal.
Yeah.
So I thought, I can't keep putting my shows up because then I will lose this. I could start over, but I have over 1,000 subscribers, which is like the line for monetizing.
Yeah.
So I thought I would do something more socially acceptable, which is to push alcohol.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. I'm not pushing it. It's really just a labor of love. It's just for me to have fun and connect with people who enjoy that. So I'm not worried about that stuff, but it is a little twisted that the political analysis and questioning about an elected official was characterized as bullying.
Yeah.
But telling people, Yeah, and telling people how to drink more is like
That's
something
okay.
they want
Yeah.
to foster.
So dumb. It was like if I was doing makeup tutorials or
Yeah,
unboxing stuff. This is the thing I don't understand. I'm going to open up
yeah,
this box of shoes or this toy box or something, and those will get
yes,
millions of views. I don't
yes.
understand this.
Yeah, you can do anything. You can do, I mean, I know you can't do porn, but you can certainly, this is my classic thing is that like I can't screen out what my kids watch at all. Nothing. I cannot do it. There's
Right.
little kids YouTube, and even that I've had people have complained to me about for their little kids. My kids aren't watching little kid stuff. I want just some way. And I've looked at third party censors who I want to buy their product, and they're like, YouTube makes it so hard to
Yeah.
curate their content that it's basically impossible.
Yeah, because people who want to mess with little kids and everything, they figure out ways of getting around the algorithm.
Yeah, and and YouTube makes it hard to combat that because you could if you could pay somebody. I mean, millions of people sign up for your service. You could hand curate enough stuff to keep people to keep kids occupied
Yeah.
by age. You could do it. You could have authorized channels and just revisit that channel once in a while. You could have 1,000 channels in a week.
Yeah. The my 3-year-old, she likes watching stuff on YouTube. But there comes a point where you can't, because you got to do other things. You can't just sit there over her shoulder the entire time. And when the video comes up of the animated Spider-Man falling off a building and breaking his head, which has happened before, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
no, we're gonna skip to the next one.
Yeah, and then I mean, wait till they get a little older. My son who has Down syndrome likes My Little Pony. It's the weirdest thing. I saw him
Yeah.
like we were on a plane. They had the My Little Pony video. I couldn't believe he clicked on it. Never saw it before. He was hooked immediately. So there's something about it that really appeals to him.
There
And
must
then,
be. My nephew has autism and is also a brony. So
oh yeah, well a brony is not innocent. A brony like has crushes. They want to date the ponies. They're grown men who want to have dates with the ponies. And I mean, that's how my son learned the word
disturbing.
rape. Yeah. Yeah. He was like, I was watching a video where one of the bronies got the R word. I was like, what? So it bastardizes even innocent stuff.
Yeah, I always thought it was just the dude who likes the My Little Pony stuff.
Well, I think there's a lot of that. I mean, I watched and didn't think it was a big deal, but my other kids are like, Mom, you can't let him go down that road. I'm like, how am I supposed to stop him? Like, I'll pay you whatever you want to sit next to him and make sure he doesn't go down that road. And I could take all the electronics away, but my son escapes. I mean, I can't even do the dishes without
Yeah.
monitoring him.
Yeah, that's it's a tough battle for sure. I think a lot of times people see like the My Little Pony stuff and everything is happy and everything is joyous.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a form of escapism for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can't sit there and watch it because it'll just irritate me. But
Yeah. What I'll do is like sometimes I'll let him watch it on a laptop with like not with headphones on or anything, so I can like orally
right.
monitor him, and that helps. And then you can also tell that it's appropriate or inappropriate.
Yeah, try to stay at least within earshot so you can kind of listen to what's going
Yes.
on. But
Yeah, but they have themes like suicide and gruesome violence and stuff that pops up and in a feed that really could easily just not go that direction.
Well, my other big complaint is somehow the video of like somebody rocking on a chair with like creepy music behind it. Maybe it's not anything nefarious, but it's still kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into the small kids feed. And I'm not even sure how that even happens, but I've come across a couple of those where it's like looking at a well and all of a sudden there's a quick shot of a guy standing there in like a doctor's uniform. And it's got creepy music behind it, and you're like, what is this?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, I would love an expose on that. Like, I would just love to know what's really... I wonder if Project Veritas could dig into that. They won't, but, that's the James O'Keefe thing where they go like, quietly, like, hidden audio.
Yeah, I've got problems with the James O'Keefe stuff, because a lot of that stuff is edited.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's quite a little bit of it where they will show somebody talking for a little bit, and then there's an obvious cut in the video and audio, and then they pick back up with something else. So I don't know what was in between that.
Yeah.
So if he had like completely raw, unedited video with maybe just like with the closed captioning up there, so you can read along with what they're saying, maybe I wouldn't have a problem with it. But he does quick edits, and there's a lot of that I don't like. So
yeah, I that's good. I'm glad you pointed that out, because I try to never get lazy about stuff like that, but I'm so desperate for some truth. I always people think, oh, you don't believe anything, you're a total conspiracy theorist, whatever. But frankly, I'm always trying. I'm always looking for hope. I'm always grasping at straws for like somebody who is legit and has reach.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I sometimes try to like overly give the benefit of the doubt to anybody who's actually out there putting the work in.
Yeah.
But it's,
I mean, I like that it's getting exposed, but there's definitely some editing going on in there, and that always will kind of keep me at an arm's distance from it.
Well, that can
it just yet.
Can completely change the meaning. Now there are plenty of like full minute, not uncut stuff where the guy will say the beginning, middle, and end of like, I censor it this way because I want to hurt Trump, and I'm allowed to do that. Like, I think you have to, some of that stuff, I think it'd be a little hard to even find a context where he wasn't saying what he just said.
Yeah. The thing that they did with the Google exec was probably a good example of that. There wasn't too many like cut edits to it.
The chick with the accent?
Yeah, but she just, well, we can't let that happen again. I was like, what do you mean you can't?
Right.
You're a search company.
Yeah.
If anything, you get paid in advertising dollars.
Yes, I know. And then when you're told like a hard, libertarian conundrum kind of is, how do you deal with these private platforms? They have the right to censor. And I'm like, they're not private platforms. It's clear they have an agenda. Who's driving it? Who owns them? And more important, when it's seeded by tax dollars, then I own it. Yeah. It's a public entity, and that needs to be fully vetted.
Yeah, at some point, you're gonna have to kind of get around it. Use DuckDuckGo or StartPage.com for your searches.
Yeah, and even, I mean, I don't think it's right, but like Publix the supermarket can't stop you, I think, from engaging in political speech on their property. I'm pretty sure. So if they're not allowed to, I think the logic there, I think the case might have been that like if they ever want the cops to enforce the law on their property, if they want government protection, it's a very like, since when are we paying for something voluntarily? Like that's not what policing is. Like, we're forced into this monopoly on force. I mean, you can't say whatever. So it's tortured, but it's applied differently to Publix than it is to Twitter.
Yeah, very true. Very true. It's it's a headache and a half, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I wish that we could unplug, because it's such a tool of brainwashing for our kids. But I think it's impossible to be economically functional now without it.
Yeah.
And then the next step is going to be the Chinese style stuff where they're going in and giving you social credits. And if you reach below a certain threshold, your ATM card doesn't work.
Yeah. There was an episode of the show Community.
Black Mirror. Oh, sorry.
No, it was the show Community with Meow Meow Beans. And I don't know what you think of Dan Harmon, but that show, I was like, okay, well, this is just nothing but social credit. And they're kind of taking a funny take to it. But then you're sitting there watching it, it was like, oh, no. I see this already happening. That was at the time when Facebook started stepping up the, the shadow banning, where, you may have like 1,000 or so likes to your page, but, every time you post something, you only get like 2 or 3 likes on something. So, people aren't seeing it.
I didn't even think of shadow banning as social credit. Of course, that's exactly what it is. I'll tell you, on YouTube, I did a YouTube video on Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
Just like, he's not a libertarian. It was when that was important.
Not even close.
That was like, because he was cited as carrying around Ayn Rand or whatever. I'm like, oh, please. So I did this great
Ayn
video.
Rand hated libertarians. I don't even know why that's even a thing, but
continue. Why? What was her thing? Yeah, I remember.
Libertarians aren't true objectivists, and only Ayn Rand was the only philosopher since Plato or something like that.
Yeah.
She's definitely got a little cult going around her.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that I know. I'm not an Ayn Rand fan, but I was when I was younger. But anyway, so I wasn't impressed by him carrying Ayn Rand around, but it was something that was supposed to like give him libertarian credentials. Yeah, exactly. So I did this video and it just like stalled exactly at 500. It was so obvious. And then like I started writing in my own comment section, like, come on guys, you got to unfreeze this. I know like 100 people have watched this since it was frozen at 5, and then it would unfreeze for a while and then it would freeze again. And I knew that they were up to something. And I guess it's possible it was shadow banning. See, I thought they were suppressing the count, but it could have been they were suppressing the video.
Yeah. I think YouTube did get caught with that at one point because they would have the thumbs up under the video would be like numbered in the thousands, but it only showed 301 views. It's like, well, the two are incompatible.
You know? I'll have to look at that. I'll have to see if there was a tell there. That is so funny.
Yeah, there was a few years ago that happened. I don't know if that still goes on anymore, but you would look down in a video, it was like, this thing's got, 5,000 thumbs up, 200 thumbs down, but the view count only shows 301, and it would be like that for several videos.
So the people watching have like 10 thumbs each.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly. That's like that joke from Family Guy. We got one call to complain about this show on the FCC, and we all know that one call equals 1 billion people, so 1 billion people hate this.
Yes, exactly.
So crazy. Well, we just did 2 hours. How do you feel?
Loved it. That was super fun.
That was awesome.
About a half an hour in, I realized that we were recording.
Yeah, I didn't even stop to do my intro or anything. So so
the first half hour, I want to go back and see if I told any, my address or something. Like, here's my phone number, buddy.
Yeah, I don't think you disclosed of anything, but if anything comes up, just let me know and I'll try to edit out.
I'm pretty sensitive to the hot mic. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we were good. I think we just got right into it. So that's all.
Yeah, super fun. Super fun. I wish that it had been in the evening and I had a cocktail, because that's just my favorite hobby is to have a cocktail and a chat. That's like, I used to try to write that as list your, on a job application or even a college application. Like, what do you like to do? And I'm like, well,
I like to drink.
I like to have cocktails and chat and chat and chat. That's part of it.
Yeah, that's half of the equation. I'm sorry.
So I'm trying to do that. Eventually my two loves, my cocktail blog and my libertarian podcast, are going to converge, and it'll just be a drink and a chat.
Yeah, out of all the libertarian podcasts, anytime someone does we're just going to sit around and drink and talk, those are my favorite episodes.
Yeah, except for not except for, but until about halfway through the Lions of Liberty and Fagcast one, where I was like, dude, I was starting to see smoke. Like, I was like, my office was fogging up halfway through. I was like, okay, guys, I'm gonna have to catch you some other time. I want to hear the rest of it for sure.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like trying to watch Cheech and Chong. I remember the first time I saw Cheech and Chong, I was like, this is the dumbest movie ever. Later that day, I was like, this is the funniest movie ever. Later that same day.
Yeah, Cheech and Chong would be like that, because there would be subtle jokes just with Tommy Chong's looks sometimes.
Yeah, right. But if you're watching it after 2 cups of coffee, it's not anywhere near as funny as of an evening.
Oh yeah, that's like going back and watching some of the old Monty Python stuff, and you're like, how is this funny again? And then you're just kind of, oh yeah, that's right, British humor. Gotta love it.
Yes. And then it's really funny.
Okay, well, I think you also set a record for the longest episode. I had Bobby Jo Woods on, who runs a keto blog, and she was at an hour 57, so you're definitely well over that. So.
Wow. Well, hopefully we covered more than just one topic.
I think we hit everything.
Yeah, I think so too. That was great. Awesome. Thank you. I can't wait. If you hear anything that you think you want to take out, I'm not afraid of editing, so do what you want.
Yeah.
And send it to me. Do you want me to post it on my feed or just post it on my website? Like, how do you like it? Because if you want to get hits, then I can just promote it, or if you want to get exposure, I can put it on my feed.
Yeah, so next Wednesday I'll have Mark Claire's episode out, and I think you talked to him like right after
I
I did.
love talking.
Yeah. So you'll be actually, you'll be the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So
that's great. And do you want me? Because I'm going to take off a couple of days during the week on Thanksgiving, so I could put it up on in my feed instead of my show if you want. But if you don't want me to do that so that it gets driven to you, I won't do it. It would be a week later.
Either way is fine. When I did the episode with Pete Quinones, it was like my 50th episode. Like my numbers weren't all that great, but after he reposted it on his, then my number shot up. So either way is
okay.
Cool.
I'll do it that way then. It's fine. I'm totally. People give me a different answer to that. Different people. So I will. That's easier for us anyway. So I will just put it on my. If you tweet at me, I'll retweet it. If you do Facebook and you want to copy me on that, I'll do it there, and then I'll also put it on cropreport.com.
Yeah,
and then I'll tweet it from there.
Yeah, that'll be great, because I think the Wednesday that it comes out, I'll probably tag you in it anyways. So
that's great, and then DM me just in case I, have too many things to read real quick. Awesome.
All right. Well, Monica, that was awesome. That was awesome.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you again.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right, and there she goes, folks. That was great. Wow. Over 2 hours. Over 2 hours worth of stuff there. So hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to try to do like a regular thing with the old Monica Perez there. If nothing else, for cocktails and a chat. So if you do like what you're hearing, I like to promote value. So if you're getting some kind of value out of this, definitely head over to patreon.com. Subscribestar.com, bitbacker.io. I've got all the links down in the show notes. If you want to buy a t-shirt or a coffee mug or a hat, go over to teespring.com, and you got everything there. If you just want to click over some tokens here and there, you can do that as well. Bitbacker has all my addresses and everything on it. So guys, seriously, this is great stuff coming out, But anyways, take it easy. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, because this will come out the day before Thanksgiving. Have all of the turkey, eat all of the pie. I know I'm the no sugar, no grains guy, but hey, put a little life into living once in a while. It's not going to kill you. Well, sustained use over many years will kill you. But if it's just a one time, enjoy the pecan pie. Enjoy the pumpkin pie. Enjoy the cinnamon rolls the next morning if you're going to. But, take it easy on it. Don't make it to be the whole day. Anyways, take it easy. We'll come at you next week with a brand new episode of Rebel with a Cause.